My views on Etsy are very low. What is up with that? This is a traffic problem that many Etsy sellers come across during their time selling online, whether they're just starting or have been selling for a while. And this is traffic that we actually want, not the road traffic where we don't want it. So today I'm going to dive in and talk more about why you're not getting the views that you want. Let's go. Everyone, what is happening? Welcome back to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, LL, your guide and your host through your Etsy journey. Glad to be back with you guys as usual. Glad you're here, spending some time with me and learning and just hanging out and talking about things, all things Etsy. And I know you're dedicated to growing your shop, and that's what I want to help you do with these episodes. And I got another good one for you. I'm going to dive in and talk about visits and views. Before we get started, I have something brand new for you. It's a brand new workshop that you can watch immediately after this episode. You can get it at handmadeandbeyond.com, Etsy Sales Workshop. It's an exclusive workshop showing you how to generate your first $1,000 a month in your Etsy shop in just 30 minutes a day with no social media. I know many of you dread social media. I'm not going to dive in and talk about social media. These are real strategies you can take advantage of immediately to grow your shop, reach your goals, get more sales, which is what I know you all want to do, and that's why you're here. So go to that link. It's also in the show notes. Watch the traffic sales workshop. I know it'll help you guys out. All right, so back to this episode talking about views and why your views are low. You know, what is going on with that? Why am I not getting traffic? Why am I not getting views? Well, first of all, take a step back, and I feel it's important, since we're talking about views, is to talk about and address the confusion with views and visits. A lot of people use them interchangeably, and they are not the same thing. They actually have very different meanings and very different implications when you're looking at the numbers behind them. So I want to clarify some things for you if you're not sure what each are, and how to look at each, because it's going to be really important to the other things that I'm going to talk about in this episode. All right, so let's talk about the difference of views and visits. So views are basically just people viewing your items in your shop. So anytime someone looks at an item, that is a view. Someone could come into your shop and look at 20 different items, that's 20 views. They could look at 30 different items, that's 30 views. They could look at just one item, that's one view, and that is one person. So one person can have many, many views if they're looking at multiple items. Visits are unique people coming to your shop. So you know, if you get one visit, that's one person in the door. Just like if you're walking into a department store, 10 people walk in, that's 10 visits. You get 10 views in your shop, 10 people came to your shop looking at your products. So those people then generate views. So those 10, if you have 10 visits, you probably have more views than that. You probably don't just have 10 views. You could, but usually your visits are lower than your views because people look at multiple items. So which one should you pay attention to more? You should pay attention to visits more, in my opinion. People have different opinions on this. I personally want to generate the most visits to my shop. If I have one person looking at 20 items, that's fine. They may or may not buy something, but the odds are greater if I have 20 people in my shop looking at 20 items or more. Those 20 people, you're more apt to get a sale. The same thing, if you have a flea market or you have a store, if you have 20 people coming to look at stuff at your flea market, chances are you're going to get some sales off of that. If you have only one person coming to your flea market, you may not get any sales. I mean, the odds are not as good as 20 different people. So I always like to focus on visits because I want as many people in the door in my shop looking at stuff, because the odds are I will get more sales because of that. Views are good, that's fine. People are going to peruse around, however you say it. But I want visits. I want more visits, more people coming to my store. That will increase the chances of getting more sales. So we're specifically going to pay attention to visits more so than views, and diagnose what is happening with low visits coming to your shop, because we want to increase that. We want to have more visits coming to your shop. All right, so pay attention to visits more, in my opinion, is what you should do. So let's take a look at some of the numbers so we kind of understand what we're going to shoot for when it comes to traffic in terms of visits. So let's take, for example, the average conversion rate for an Etsy shop, and this varies wildly depending on your niche, depending on what you're selling, but the average overall conversion rate is 2 to 3%. This is the rate of people buying. So how do you figure out a conversion rate? Well, it's a number of sales divided by the number of visits. Again, we're using visits. That will give you your conversion rate percentage, which you can see in your Etsy shop dashboard, the conversion rate. Well, that's how they came across the conversion rate. They took a total number of visits and divided it by sales. That is your conversion rate. So 2 to 3%, that means for every 100 visits you get, you should be getting 2 to 3 sales, depending on what your conversion rate is. That's the number that you really should shoot for, because that is the average. Again, yours may be higher, yours may be lower. If it's lower, you need to work on converting more, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But that is kind of the numbers, a snapshot of the numbers. So from there, we can diagnose our shop and we can see how many visits are we actually getting, how many sales are we actually getting, so we can kind of adjust our expectations. So you can look at your overall stats in your shop. Like I said, if you go in your stats tab, you can see overall, what's my conversion rate, how many visits am I getting. But I would suggest, that gives us an overall picture, but to get the real picture of what's going on, I would dive into your individual listing stats to see what's going on with your individual listings, because those are what we're going to adjust. The overall stats we can't really do anything with. That's just telling us overall our shop health. Where the rubber meets the road is your individual listings, looking at those stats, and that's going to tell us what's going on with our listings. What do we need to adjust? Why are things the way that the way that they are with those listing stats? So you can tell by looking at an individual listing stats, you can learn 2 problems from looking at the number of visits in those stats. The first problem is you don't have enough visits, which is a traffic problem. You're not getting enough people to your listing. So that is a traffic problem. The number 2 problem is you're getting visits, but people aren't buying, which means it's a listing problem. Something's going on with your listing. They're not converting, and that's where the overall average conversion rate comes into play. You got to see, all right, how many visits am I getting? How many sales am I getting? Keep in mind with problem number 2, if you're generating your own traffic through social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, you may have high visits and no sales or low sales. That's skewing the number. You can go in the individual stats and scroll to the bottom, and it'll tell you where your traffic sources are coming from. You'll see it'll pop in those social media channels, and you see, okay, getting a lot of traffic from Pinterest, but it's not converting. And that could hurt your listing performance too. So just keep that in mind. That's why social media sometimes isn't always the greatest, because it can skew your numbers and hurt your stats and cause the listing to perform worse. It also causes it to perform better. So just keep that in mind. Those are the kind of implications. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about problem number 1, which is you don't have enough visits coming to your listing. And this can be broken down into 4 areas causing this. All right. The first reason is you haven't given it enough time. The second is people aren't clicking into the listing because something's wrong with the picture. Third is people aren't clicking because you're targeting the wrong audience. And 4, you're not finding your listing. People just aren't finding your listing to click on. All right, so those are kind of the 4 problem areas, the 4 reasons that you're not getting the traffic that you want to that individual listing. So I'm going to dive into each so you can help diagnose your listing, kind of make adjustments if you're having this problem, which you will have. Not all your listings are going to perform. You're going to have bad performing listings. Hopefully they're not all bad, but usually you have only 20% of your listings do well. 80-20 rule. Most of your income on Etsy is going to come from 20% of your listings. The rest of your income, the rest of your listings are the other 80%. So usually you're always working on those other 80% to try to get them to the 20%, it's an ongoing process. It doesn't mean that you should delete those 80% of your listings, because those still drive traffic. It still helps fill out your product catalog. So keep that in mind. Again, another topic for another day, talking about the 80-20 rule, but it's just a kind of a way to get your expectations and your mindset of how things work on your shop, so you kind of know and can make decisions behind it. So let's dive into the 4 areas that are causing your traffic problems. The first one is time. Like I said, it just hasn't, you're not getting visits, but your listing hasn't been up long enough. So I know your next question is, well, how long should I wait? Well, usually when you put up a new listing, you should wait 1 to 2 renewal cycles before you make any adjustments to see, how the algorithm does with it, how it categorizes it, what kind of traffic you're getting. So a renewal cycle is 4 months. So you should wait, 4 to 8 months before you make any adjustments, to make any changes. And that'll give you a good idea. Okay. If I wait 8 months and I get 10 visits, okay, that's very low traffic. That's not enough. So there's another problem going on, which is going to be one of these other 3 that I'm going to talk about, which the next one is picture. It's a picture issue. People are seeing your listing in search, but they're not clicking into it. And the thing to keep in mind with this is a lot of people forget about this, but when they're finding you in search, your picture is yay big and it's beside all these other pictures of like items. The algorithm is putting all this stuff in there. They want to get the person to buy. So they're going to put the most relevant, the things that they think the buyer is interested in the most, and hopefully they'll find something they like and buy. And hopefully for you, they find something that they find your listing up there and click on it and buy. So think about your picture, how it's showing up when it's way small, mixed in with dozens of other listings. How does it look? Does it pop out? Is it easy to see? Is it blurry? Is it too dark? Is it zoomed in and cropped too far in? Is it zoomed out, cropped too far out? People need to clearly see what it is. They need to be able to, as they're scrolling by fast, they need to see it. It needs to be clear what it is. It needs to pop out, and they need to stop and click on it. If they're seeing a bunch of other listings and they have no interest in clicking into your picture because something's going on with it, well, that's the reason. That's why you're not getting visits. So look at your picture, take a step back. I know when you're just starting on Etsy, we kind of slack a little on pictures. I look at my pictures from back in the day, years ago, and they're literally hot garbage. I kick myself every time I look at them because I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why in the world I would skimp on my pictures. One of the most important areas, especially to get people into your listing. And I was cutting corners, just didn't pay a lot of attention to it. My thought was like, whatever, people will forgive a bad picture and still buy. Absolutely not. Tells the story. It tells the story as far as what's going on. Even now, you also have videos. When you hover over one of your pictures, if you have a video, it starts playing the video. So that's also another thing to consider. If they actually stop on your listing, hover over it, it'll show the video. Again, why video is also important, but your picture gets them to stop. Gets them to stop in their tracks. So that's important on the onset. The third thing that I mentioned is wrong audience. So for whatever reason, people are, they're seeing it in search, but they're not clicking on it. It's not a picture issue. They're just not interested in it from what they're seeing. So that's a wrong audience. So maybe the keywords that you're using in your listing, title tags, description, the keywords you're using there are just the wrong keywords, or they're too general. For whatever reason, it's being shown to people that aren't interested in buying what you're selling. Usually the problem is it's too general. Just like a quick offhand example here, because there's many different ways that you can mess this up, right? But a quick example is, maybe you're selling like a printables, right? You're selling like grocery list printables. So someone can go to the grocery store, have their list, and know what they're going to buy. But maybe your keywords are just referencing a list, printable list, PDF download list, some type of thing like that, like a tracking download, whatever the case may be. Very, very general. Well, if people are looking for a grocery download, a grocery PDF, they're not going to see your listing, because the people that are seeing your listing are, it's a much broader audience. So the grocery people aren't even seeing your listing because you're not using those terms in your search. Your listing is being shown to everyone and their brother that has printables on Etsy, and the chances of them looking for a grocery list is going to be very, very slim. All right, so if you need to use more specific keywords so it's shown to that audience, not such a broad audience. Same thing if you just do if you're selling like a specific graphic t-shirt, you know, for a mom, and your listing is just referencing a woman's outfit, woman's clothing, you know, a woman's gift, I mean, that's very, very general. So the chance of moms finding your listing and moms looking for and finding that what you're selling is going to be much slimmer. So this could be causing the wrong audience, the wrong niche to be looking at your item or finding your item and not clicking into it because they have no interest in buying it. Number 4 is where, you know, it's probably one of the biggest problems is just customers aren't finding your listing. It's not being shown in the search results. So obviously you're not going to get visits because it's not even showing up. It's not ranking well. It's not doing good. So usually this comes down to the wrong keywords. You're not using, again, you could be using too general of keywords. You could be using not specific enough keywords. And there could be other problems with the listing causing it not to be shown in search results. As you may or may not know, a lot of the search results are based on the keywords in your listing, but it's also based on other factors. You know, how well your shop is set up, previous reviews, you know, previous stats in your shop. So there's, you know, buyer behaviors, there's a lot of different factors playing into it, but the biggest reason is the actual keywords that you're using. So are you using enough keywords? Are you using specific keywords? Are you using relevant keywords? Are you filling out all your keywords in your tags and title? Are you using keywords in your descriptions? And that is going to cause the listing to be shown higher or less high in search results. So that's why it's really, really important. You want your listing to get found. The best way to do that is to have the most specific, relevant keywords in your listing. So that is it, guys. Those are the 4 main reasons why you're not getting the visits that you should be getting or think you should be getting. So you can clearly use this, pull those 4 levers and kind of see which way to diagnose your listing by looking at the actual stats and being able to make decisions on the stats. So this is why, I mean, it's not the most sexy, fun thing to talk about is stats. You know, it brings you back to school where you're falling asleep in algebra and stats, or you may have struggled with it in the past, but these stats are very important. They're easy to look at and you can use them to diagnose problems and make decisions in your business. So that's why it's important to pay attention to the things that's going on. But those are the 4 ways to diagnose it. So you know now you can dive in today, look at your stats and be like, okay, this could be the problem. So I'm going to work on this, make these adjustments, make these tweaks, and then come back in a renewal cycle or 2 and see if that listing improves. So now you know how to do it. But that's it for this episode, guys. Make sure you go and watch that free sales workshop that I talked about earlier. Make sure you go to handmadeandbeyond.com/Etsy sales workshop. You can immediately watch it today. How to generate your first $1,000 a month on Etsy with only 30 minutes a day and no social media, which isn't always our favorite, right? So go there, watch it, learn, apply it to your shop. Remember, it's most important to take action on this stuff. Sounds good in theory, but nothing will happen if you don't dive in and take action to the things that I'm talking about. But that's it, guys. I'll be back soon with another episode for you. Have an amazing rest of your day.